Welcome to our community forum with our Santa Clara County Public Health Department. My name is Corina Herrera Loera, and I'm a Public Information Officer here at the Emergency Operations Center. Today, we have our community forum that will be focusing on education. And before we have our guest do a presentation focused on our Santa Clara County Office of Education schools, we will give a brief update as to our county and where we currently stand. So in our county, we are currently now in orange tier, as you all know, and I will review what that means in specific to our county as we're following the state's levels. And so currently, certain activities are allowed to resume and proceed with caution. So COVID-19 case rates, hospitalizations, and deaths are falling, but remain present in our community. Vaccinations are occurring as quickly as possible as supplies allow, but most people in our community are still not vaccinated. So just remember, just because it is allowed, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is safe. And so what can increase out indoors is the retail stores to 100% capacity, the shopping centers at 100% capacity, museums, zoos, and aquariums, maximum 50% capacity, and places of worship, maximum 60% capacity. And also what can increase indoors is restaurants, maximum 50% capacity or 200 people, whichever is fewer. Gyms and fitness centers, maximum 25% capacity. Indoor pools are also allowed. And movie theaters, a maximum of 50% capacity or 200 people, whichever is fewer. And allowed also indoors at a reduced capacity are wineries, breweries, and distilleries, a maximum of 25% capacity or 100 people, whichever is fewer. Offices, businesses are required to maximize telework still. And family entertainment centers for naturally distanced activities, a maximum of 25% capacity. Card rooms, satellite, wagering, maximum of 25% capacity. And allowed outdoors only are bars where no meal is provided, and amusement parks, 25% or 500 people, whichever is less. Effective the 1st of April, indoor capacity maximum 25% with time restrictions. And I want to update, let folks know that the County of Santa Clara is still waiting for adequate vaccine supply from the state to utilize its vaccination capacity, despite last week's announcement from the state that vaccine eligibility would expand to Californians age 50 and over on April 1st, which is today, and then include individuals age 16 and over on April 15th. And here I want to highlight our current numbers here in Santa Clara County. As you all know, this is available on our dashboard on our website. But I do want to highlight that our Hispanic and Latino community, only 77,798 have been vaccinated. And our total population is 415,502. And I just want to, highlight in regards to our numbers here, in that that's only approximately 19% of our Hispanic Latino population, which is our hardest impacted community with COVID-19. And so really want to highlight that we are still not vaccinated, close to many of our other populations in our counties. We're still one of the lowest that has been vaccinated. So just encouraging you all that if you do have the opportunity to get vaccinated, that you do as soon as possible. And also, continue to be safe. And I'll go over some of those guidelines ahead, but we need to make sure that we get vaccinated and we continue to stay socially distanced and follow the different guidelines that we have to keep our numbers low. And this is another graph where it's showing our daily rolling average rate of lab confirmed COVID-19 cases in the county. And so this is from December 15th, 2020 through March 15th, 2021. And it's just to give us a glimpse of those numbers between those dates. And if you can see, as I mentioned, our East Side San Jose community and Gilroy continue to be the highest rates there. So even though it's a good thing that the numbers have decreased as a whole in the county, our numbers still continue to be the highest in East San Jose and Gilroy. And so if you see the orange line and the blue line, the light blue line on the top, those top two, that's East San Jose and Gilroy, which continue to be the highest. And so, as I mentioned earlier, it's important to continue to follow the core principles to stay safe, stay outdoors, stay masked, maintain at least 6 feet distance from others, avoid crowds, and get vaccinated as soon as you are able to. And now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, David Putney, who is an administrator of special projects for Santa Clara County Office of Education. And he is here to give us an update on education here in Santa Clara County. Welcome, David, and thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate this opportunity to share some information.
Thank you.
All right. So I have a couple slides I brought. We can go ahead and bring up the slide deck. Wonderful. Next slide. So here's an overview of the topics I'm going to briefly share today. We also have links that we'll be able to make available for some of the documents that I'm referencing. So all schools are eligible to reopen in Santa Clara County. There's additional state funding for public schools related to reopening and also for learning loss mitigation. Information around transparency and accountability for schools, safe routes to school, graduation, there's new guidance on graduation planning, and then information on outdoor and indoor youth and recreational adult sports. Next slide. The funding that is available came from an SB 86, Senate Bill 86, that provides additional funding for public schools, $6.5 billion that is available for districts to respond to COVID-19 and to ensure that students have access to interventions related to some of the learning loss that may have occurred this year. Next slide. All schools have safety mitigation. They've been working directly with the Santa Clara County Public Health Department and the Santa Clara County Office of Education. All schools will be providing a lot of the same information and measures. Students and staff are expected to have face coverings at all time, unless it's if a student had an immediate health issue, obviously. But all students and staff need to be wearing face coverings. Classrooms and groups should be stable groups if possible. Primarily in the elementary, it's a much easier environment to have stable groups. In the middle and the high school, it's encouraged, and there's several models that some schools are working to have stable groups, but each school is slightly nuanced and different. So if you have specific questions around your school, it'd be important to contact your school to ensure you know what their specific plans are. But stable groups are very consistent across our county. Physical distancing is an expectation in all schools. Student desks are allowable down to 3 feet, and social distancing should always be occurring at 6 feet outside of the classroom, as well as during eating and drinking. It's important to know that 3 feet is the minimum standard. A lot of schools are doing 4, 5, and 6 feet, depending on their size and their space. Obviously, the greater the distance, the safer it is for everyone. School districts have been working very hard on adequate ventilation, using open windows, fresh air, and outdoor spaces whenever possible. They're all supported with hand hygiene practices, ensure the safety is there. Symptoms and close contact exposure screening and exclusion from school for students and staff is a directive that we're all working through with Santa Clara County Public Health. In the event that there is a COVID positive case on campus, it is reported directly to Santa Clara County Public Health, and then those individuals are supported with accurate information through public health, and those individuals would not be on campus. they would finish their isolation period, and close contacts would have their quarantine period of 10 days. There's surveillance screening and testing that's occurring throughout the county and schools, working collaboratively with different agencies, as well as specifically with Santa Clara County Public Health. And vaccinations, as you heard momentarily, are really increasing in Santa Clara County. As of March 23rd, we did a study. We reached out to teachers in the county, and of those that responded, 95% of school employees had either received their first dose and/or were scheduled for a dose. So that's great news. As a reminder, vaccinations are an individual choice and they're not mandated in schools currently. But we're seeing that the vaccinations are really out there for all school employees. Next slide. Transparency and accountability. The state of California and the California Department of Public Health has put together this website. The website's at the bottom. We'll make the link available. This is a great resource to learn some additional information. Each school has to post its COVID reopening plan on its school website, as well as it's updated with California Department of Public Health. And this website and/or the school website directly will show you their school plan. This is broken into 3 distinct areas: school districts, public school districts, charter schools, and private schools. When you click on the link, and we don't necessarily need to do this now because we might get stuck going down a lot of links, but if you click on the primary link, it'll take you to this website page, and then you can scroll down in from the entire state of California down into Santa Clara County and learn some additional information. Next slide. Your local educational agency is basically your school district, your charter school, or your private school that your son or daughter attends. The local school district is required to post their COVID-19 reopening plan on their website at least 5 days prior to opening. So school is already open, it is posted on their school website. The school also provides the California Department of Public Health a copy, and that is on the website that I just showed you momentarily ago. If you have specific questions, I encourage you to go directly to your local educational agency and look at their COVID-19 plan. Each school has its own authority within its district or agency to make decisions that are in alignment with California Department of Public Health, and they're nuanced or altered depending on what school conditions they have in terms of size, etc. So I would encourage you, if you have questions specifically to your school, contact them directly and/or their school plan that should be posted on their website. Next slide. As a reminder, safe routes to school. As children are going back to school, if they haven't been already, it's just a good reminder that walking and biking or riding scooters, if it's safe in your community, it's a great way to get to school. It's very healthy for children, and they're more ready to learn as they've had some exercise on the way and on the way home from school. The Santa Clara County Public Health just really wants to encourage and remind everyone that there's multiple safe routes to school, and walking, biking, and riding scooters is a great option. Next slide. Graduation planning. The California Department of Public Health has provided guidance on graduation planning. The link is on the 3rd bullet there. It's very explicit and provides detailed information for schools and LEAs, local education agencies, for making the decisions necessary on how to plan and prepare for graduation. Next slide. Across all tiers, commencement ceremonies must adhere to the following requirements and modifications. All attendees, including school staff, performers, students, and families, are counted toward the occupancy capacity. There is an occupant capacity, and so it's specific to the tier. In orange tier, currently it would be 33% and/or 67% if all attendees have a negative COVID-19 test 72 hours prior to the event and/or are vaccinated. If a school or LEA has multiple ceremonies, the expectation is that they would have 2 hours between the ceremonies to allow them to clean and prepare and prep, and to ensure that there is no mixing of attendees. The limit of attendees for groups into a household, people of the same household are allowed to sit together, but different households must be 6 feet apart. And attendance, for those that are attending, it's important to make sure that there's marked sections and attendees and assigned seating to ensure safety across the graduation. Next slide. Individual control measures to ensure that everyone's safe is that attendees will be expected to wear masks, social distancing of 6 feet, and attendees must be limited to school staff, graduates, household members, and family members and attendees. If they do travel, they need to ensure that they're following the guidelines and the travel limitations as indicated by the California Department of Public Health Travel Advisory. So that's very important as you anticipate making plans that you adhere to those travel advisories. Attendees must sign up in advance for graduation, and only those that have pre-registered may attend. Now, this is important that you contact your local school as information will be coming directly from your school, your local education agency, the decisions that they would be making, they will be informing you on how to plan ahead. These are just general guidelines from the state of California. Staff and attendees must monitor the number of attendees entering the graduation event to confirm that they have been pre-registered. So only those that are pre-registered for the event will be able to attend. Additional information, persons who are particularly vulnerable to COVID-19 due to age or underlying health conditions should consider possibly not attending due to the potential risk to the individual. Individuals who are sick or are isolated or on quarantine must remain at home, and contact your local school for specific information regarding graduation. The link at the bottom is the guidance that gives you additional information that the school would be adhering to as schools plan for graduation. Next slide. In the event that the schools are unable to have graduation in person, and I should have stated, I'm sorry, that the graduation expectation is that these will be outdoor events. So for schools that are unable to provide that or choose not to, there's encouragement to provide a virtual or recorded or live stream graduation ceremonies. It's also encouraged that might also happen concurrently with live events to allow out-of-state attendees to attend virtually, as well as sharing videos and or car parades are also alternatives to in-person commencements. Next slide. Outdoor and indoor youth and recreational adult sports. High school and adult sports, high school sports are able to resume. And as you've probably seen around our county, many high schools are out having their athletic seasons. The sports are broken into low contact, moderate contact, and high contact sports. And depending on the tier we're in, tier 1, 2, 3, or 4 will dictate which sports are allowed. We are currently in orange tier. Next slide. Now this graphic, it might be difficult to see, but the columns represent the tier. So our purple tier, our orange, our purple tier, our red tier, our orange, and our yellow tier. They're all illustrating which sports are authorized to resume based on the tier. So if we're currently in red, all sports that are in purple, red, and orange are authorized to continue to resume their activities. There are additional provisions for out-of-tier sports, such as yellow tier. Schools that are providing athletics in the yellow tier need to adhere to the collegiate and professional guidance on how to provide those sports during an out-of-tier current situation. There's information on that link that will give you more specific information around athletics. If you have more information or if you have requesting some more information, I encourage you to follow the link. There's a lot of detailed information there. Next slide. All right. We're going to be going to a slide in just a moment that has contact information for you to find your local educational agency. In the event that you're not sure how to contact your school, these links here provide direct access to our local public school directory through the Santa Clara County Office of Education. There's also a list of charter schools. The second link provides that, a list of contact information for charter schools. Through the state of California, there's a list of private schools within California. The link to Santa Clara County Office of Education is a great resource for families and students, and the California Department of Education additionally is there for you, as well as the local public school directory. Next slide. If you ever have questions regarding schools, feel free to reach out to the Emergency Operations Center. The school's email is there and the direct phone number, and or the Incident Command Center, which is directly through the Santa Clara County Office of Education. And next slide. And I think that's the end of the overview that I was providing, but we're really in a good place right now that we're in the orange tier and that schools across Santa Clara County are open and reopening and increasing more programming every day moving forward. And so this is a really, it's very encouraging. It's great to see.
Thank you so much, Mr. Putney. And now we're going to open it up to questions from the audience. So I just want to remind you, if you are tuning in, you are able to put it in the comments. We'll go ahead and take the questions as they come in, either through Facebook or the YouTube as well. There's an opportunity for you to put in your comments and put in your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them as they come in. I do see a few, Mr. Putney, so I'm going to go ahead and ask them. I see also somebody might have put in an answer for one of them, so we'll just go down the list here. So the first one is from Mr. T. Villarreal Alarcon. Why 3 feet desk but social distance 6 feet? Why not the same? And before you answer that, I do want to also highlight Alexandra Clements put here some sort of an answer. So I'll read that, and then if you can maybe add to that or clarify anything. It says, depending on the school, sometimes they can't realistically fit all the kids in with the desk space 6 feet away. So they did a study and found that if kids were wearing masks, that they can be seated at a minimum of 3 feet. I'm assuming safely. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, ultimately, there's been a lot of studies around the world in schools. Here in the United States, 3 specific studies, one in North Carolina, one in Wisconsin, and one, I believe, in Mississippi. They studied over 40,000 students in K-12 in the fall, and they found that really the student transmission between student to student is almost minimal to nil when wearing masks and maintaining social distancing. And then additional research went into the transmission with students that with 3 feet provides at least a minimum barrier and a minimum standard. So the California Department of Public Health aligned to the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, in alignment based on those research studies, as well as some of the research that was coming out of Europe. And the previous comment, I think, is fair to say that schools are trying to reopen to get schools back in, and families are wanting their children to come back to school. So 3 feet allows classrooms to accommodate more children. The 6 feet social distancing outside of the classroom is really important because that's a greater risk of mixing between different students. And obviously when eating and drinking occurs, should be 6 feet apart because that is aerosol generating. When people are eating and drinking and talking is when the aerosol, which is the particles that spread COVID, are at the greatest exchange. And so that's why the social distancing is different when they're out of the classroom.
Thank you so much. And I just want to remind folks that today we're focusing on education here in Santa Clara County. And so, if you can make sure if you have any questions around education here in our county, that we take advantage of Mr. Putney's time here and that we're able to ask him questions in regards to education here. So I'm going to go to the next one. Also, T. Villarreal Alarcon. What happens if a student or teacher are positive? What happens then? Every student to be isolated that was around the student teacher.
That's a great question. California Department of Public Health and our local Santa Clara County Public Health require schools to report positive cases on campus within 4 hours. And so when that occurs, what happens is we have COVID-19 designees identified in every school, private, public, and charter in the county. And that when a test comes back being positive and that is known, it's reported back. The individual is then sent home to isolate. Individuals that have a positive COVID test are considered to isolate for 10 days. individuals that are, we call a close contact to a positive case, they are then quarantined. I'll give you some more information about the differences with isolation and quarantining. The individual isolates for 10 days. If they have no symptoms and they continue that 10-day isolation period, at the end of 10 days, if they have no symptoms and there's no fever, they're able to return back to their previous activities. Now, close contact, they need to quarantine. And after the 6th day, then they would take a COVID test, at least on the 6th day. Sometimes folks do it beforehand, but it's important to do it on the 6th day because it takes a couple days for the antibodies and the virus to become present in the body to give you an accurate test. So when an individual quarantines for 10 days, the 6th day they test. If they're negative, they complete their 10-day quarantine period, and then they can come back to activities. If their test on the 6th day is positive, then they start their 10-day isolation period at that point. And everyone in that household around that individual would be considered a close contact to that individual. So then those other individuals would start their quarantine period while that other person completes their isolation period. So that's a lot of information, but basically the school will send the individuals home that are positive. They'll identify and inform those that are close contact and send those individuals home to quarantine and to test. And then they send letters to the school community letting them know that there was a positive case on campus. And if they receive the letter, they have not been identified as a close contact. So that way the entire community is informed.
Thank you, David. And then I have two questions in regards to the actual marked seats of the graduates. So I'm going to ask them together because I think the answer might be similar. So the first one's from Christine Vaught Holbert. She says, you said that attendees had to be in fixed or marked seats. Can the graduates be in marked folding chairs on the football field? And then before you answer that, I just want to read the other one. Sure. It's the same person. So maybe she's clarifying. Can graduates be in marked folding chairs on the football field? The guidelines only mentioned attendees. We need clarification on marked folding chairs for the graduates being approved. Our football players can play on the field. The graduates should be able to sit in folding chairs 6 feet apart on the field.
Yeah, that's a great question. The guidance just came out from the California Department of Public Health. Each school district is going to have to make the decisions based on what their conditions are. So at this point, it's really referring back to your local school district to see what they plan to do to follow the guidelines. And the California Department of Public Health has provided additional guidance. So it's really more of your local educational agency would be the most appropriate to answer that question.
Thank you. And then we're going to go back up to Ashley Abatelli. And Ashley asks, the San Jose public libraries are so closely tied to the schools for tutoring, after school activities, etc. Why are schools open and libraries are not?
I'm not familiar with the governance over libraries, so I'm sorry, I can't speak to the libraries. It's a great question, and I'll refer that to my colleagues and see if we can get some further information for you in the future.
Mm-hmm. Which is under the city, so they're able to go directly to the city. Otherwise, that's something to note down here about the libraries.
Great.
Thank you. And then we have Linda Garbarino. For commencement, are folding chairs allowed in the perimeter area with assigned seating? Kind of similar to what you asked.
Yeah, again, I would refer you back to your local school district to see what their local plans are. I think the expectation is that they would be social distance of 6 feet. And so I don't think it'd be specific to the type of chair, if it would be a bleacher or if it would be a folding chair. I would think, just thinking out loud, it was just the 6 feet social distancing between groups. But again, I would refer you back to your local school district to get their particulars in their planning. And granted, this guidance just came out on March 26th. So they've literally only had it 1 week. So, I know they're working really hard, schools are, to really interpret this and to make their localized decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Patney. The next one from TV Villarreal Alarcón. Again, what if I'm not comfortable with my student returning due to she has asthma? Will there be distance learning available?
Currently, schools are providing distance learning and in person. So I'd contact your local school and to ensure that is the expectation. Next academic year, we are waiting for additional guidance from the California Department of Public Health. That information will be coming through the spring and the summer, and then we'll be sharing that information directly with schools. But currently, districts are, I would reach out to your local district to ensure what options you have.
Thank you. And we have Joy Williams. Our school district is giving us this option to continue with distance learning. You should ask your school district this question. My understanding is that it's up to the district. Yes. Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Joy. So I think those are the questions that we have so far, unless we have any others coming in. Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Putney, before we end today's community forum?
Oh, I just want to appreciate the Santa Clara County Public Health Department, the collaboration between all the different agencies. This has been such a challenging year, and I just really appreciate that everyone's working really hard to get this information out. If you have questions, please reach out to the EOC schools if you have questions specifically around schools, or through the Santa Clara County Office of Education through the ICC. Those numbers and contact information we'll make available to you. It's great asking questions. We're all learning together, and we just want to make sure that accurate information is always available. So thank you, Karina, for allowing me to join you today. And anything I can do to help support, please let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Putney, and the Santa Clara County Office of Education for your diligent work in ensuring that our children are safe in school and still learning as we continue with this pandemic. And the only thing I want to remind folks, especially those of us who have little ones that will be coming out on spring break, little ones and some of us not so little ones, is that we do our best to continue to maintain not just ourselves, but our families safe by continuing to follow the directives that we have. I know we sound like a broken record, but it will continue to keep us safe and keep our numbers low. We've heard of variants now in our county, and so we want to make sure that we have a hold on that and that we don't have a surge come up again. So continue to wear your masks, continue to be social distance, at least 6 feet apart. I know Easter's coming up. Many of us celebrate that with our families. We know the directives. It's only 3 households, and outside. So I know it's hard for some of us that have larger families, but please remember those guidelines as we continue to come out of this pandemic, and make sure to get your vaccine when you're able to do so. So thank you again for joining us, and we will see you in 2 weeks again. Thank you, Mr. Putney, and have a great rest of your day.
Take care.
You too.